Hello, I want to welcome you back to the Fundamentals of Television Production, and we are on the last lecture, which is called TV Station Operations. It's basically about the departments that make up a TV station. Bear in mind that in larger markets, there will be assistants to these departments, and in smaller markets, the departments may take up more than one topic. For example, advertising and traffic may be in the same department. But in a major market like New York or Chicago or LA, Florida, something like that, there'll be separate departments for sure with different people working, for them. So TV station operations, the departments at a TV station. The idea, of course, is so when you're looking into classifieds and they list the department, you kind of know what the functions are for that department. So you know if you should be applying for a job as an apprentice or as an intern or as just an entry-level job at this particular department. So let's look at sales real quick. I talk about sales first because sales is really what makes the whole thing happen. Without the money we take in from sales, we're not able to produce any of the programming you like to see on television. That is, you're watching television for your favorite program, but you get interrupted by the commercials, right? And you switch the channel and say, oh, I don't want to watch this. Because you don't want to see the commercial. But the point is, the commercials are part of the program, and you have to start to think about the commercials being part of the programming. So what I want you to do is I want you to understand the difference between local sales and national sales, because there are different budget lines between the two. Local sales is basically a company that's advertising in your location, in your state, tri-state area or something like that. A national ad doesn't say anything like that. It'll say available at your local Ford dealer, or it'll say something like your local supermarket, but it doesn't specify. And the difference is the national sales commercials are really much larger in terms of budgeting and preparation. They get professional actors sometimes to be the spokesperson for the product. And so there's a lot of money that goes into that. So it's different. So if you wanted to get into the business through advertising, or maybe as a video editor, or as a production person, or as an assistant, or something like that, you go to local sales and find out who's doing the local advertising in your area. It's usually the local cable company, or maybe a private advertising agency that hires people, production people, to do that kind of work for them, but at a very local level. And the possibility of getting a job there, is much more realistic than getting a job with a national advertising campaign. So that's the difference of sales. So understand when you're watching a television program, you're looking at the commercial, is this a national commercial or is it a local commercial? If it's a local commercial, you could always go online and find out who put that commercial together and then apply for a job. If it's a national commercial, well, you could go online and find out what agency handled that campaign, but applying to a job that way may or may not work, and the competition is much more steep, let's face it. Okay, so that's sales, okay? But that's where the money comes. You could say, well, I don't do this, I watch PBS, I don't watch commercial television. Well, PBS still advertises. They advertise differently. They advertise before the program and then after the program, but not during the program. But they're still taking money in from people, revenue from companies that are sponsoring the program. So it's still advertising. It's just a different style of advertising, okay? But sales, understand that without sales, we don't have programming. Traffic department. Traffic department works really close with the sales department. What they do is they physically input the commercial blocks. For example, if you're watching a half-hour program, the first commercial block may be maybe 3 minutes long. It may be made up of 6 30-second commercials. And so you will negotiate, or salespeople will negotiate with the client. The client may be a water company or mouthwash company or a chewing gum company. They will negotiate with that representative from that company, where is this commercial going to go in the show. Now, this has a lot to do with ratings. It also has a lot to do with what part of the commercial block the commercial is airing. Because as soon as the commercial comes on from the show, from the program, and we hit the first commercial, we know that more people are going to see that commercial, okay, than any other time because they were just watching the show. If they reached to the remote control and changed the channel, well, they would have seen at least five seconds of the commercial. And lots of times that's all the advertiser wants. They're very grateful if you see 5 seconds of their commercial. So at least their product is in your mind if in the event you were ever looking for a product like that. Okay. It's happened to me plenty of times. I've gone to the supermarket and looking for a product, and I don't know what the product is really about, but I have this need that I have to satisfy. Maybe I drop something on the carpet or something, and I don't know anything about it. I'll end up reverting back to a commercial or a jingle or something I'd seen on television and look at that product first. So, but the traffic department will then negotiate with the salespeople, not with the salespeople, with the salespeople negotiate with the product, company. The product they'll pay for a certain time slot or time slots throughout the program. And if it's a really popular program, it's going to cost more money to advertise 30 seconds. If it's a less popular program and the rating is not too good in that particular channel, well, then it's going to be cheaper. And it's like 6 one, a half dozen the other. You may say, well, I don't have enough money to advertise during that show because the budget's way too high, so I'll advertise on other shows where they don't charge a lot of money. But then on those other shows, there's not as many people are watching that program that are watching the first show that you couldn't afford to advertise on. So it's you have to figure out how to do that. Or these people, they figure out how to do that. So the traffic department, if you work in a traffic department, they sit behind a computer and they're taking these program blocks, these commercials or programs, and they're inserting them into the programs. It's a computer program. They insert these programs within the commercial block. So the first commercial block is made up of 6 commercials, maybe, and commercial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they have different rates, how much they charge for the 30 seconds depending on where those commercials are. And what happens is the next day or the end of the week, they'll make sure all those commercials aired when they were supposed to, and if that's the case, then they'll send the bill to the product, the bubblegum company or the water company or the soft drink company, and say, okay, you owe us X amount of money as was negotiated with our sales department. And that's basically the way it works. Now, these deals always change. It's sales, and depending on the day, depending on the event, and depending on demand, okay, or what's attractive or not, the rates change. People talk a lot about commercials that they don't know what they're watching, but the commercial's fun. They like to imitate the commercials or the commercial characters, and that's all. The advertisers are very happy because they know that their product is in your mind. Even though you don't know what the product does, they know that the product is in your mind. And people that study advertising or work in advertising can tell you much more than I can about this. But this is just to talk about advertising, sales, local, national, and the traffic department at a TV station. The next is the programming department. The programming department they're responsible for scheduling shows. They buy and rent programming, shows that you like or not like. They'll schedule shows in different times during the week. That's why your favorite show was moved to a Thursday night. You had time on a Tuesday night, but now it's on a Thursday night, but you have to work on a Thursday night. The programming department, they moved that to Thursday night. And don't be angry with them. The reason why they moved it is they're trying to compete with another channel that's got a really good rating on a Thursday night. So they're taking their really popular programming and moving it over there to compete with advertising. To get people to advertise on their channel. So that's what the programming department's doing. They're buying or renting shows, okay, from independent producers or independent production companies. They're scheduling, they're taking care of the clock, the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week clock. And that's a lot of programming. So you'll notice sometimes in the middle of the night, if you tune to some channels, you'll see that there's something called prepaid programming. Prepaid programming. It's usually somebody working out with a special exercise machine, or someone trying to sell you an oven that cooks products, cooks meat in a really quick time or something. Well, what that is they bought up that whole time slot, a half hour, and they've had that program produced professionally to sell all their products. That's prepaid programming. You've seen things like the rotisserie guy, or the Nordic track, the exercise machine. They'll advertise like that, and they'll have personalities or actors that'll be their spokesperson and advertise the product. Okay, so But anyway, that's the programming department. But under the programming department, there are several other subcategories I think you should know about. Because if you pick up a journal, like a media management journal, you won't be able to get through the article unless you understand these terms. So the first one is O&O stations. O&O is very simple. It just means owned and operated by itself. Owned and operated. Another one, nobody tells them what to do. No one tells them how much money to spend on advertising. No one tells them where to put their programs. They do it themselves, okay? Then under that, you would have something called networks. Networks are stations that distribute programs to other stations. Other stations that don't have a sizable operation. For example, those stations are called affiliate stations. AFFILIATES. I made a mistake, so I scratched it out. Affiliate stations, they're the brother or sister stations to the networks. In New York, however, we have a lot of the networks here in broadcasting. CBS Channel 2, NBC Channel 4, ABC Channel 7. Those networks are in Manhattan. They're in New York. And so when we're watching those channels in New York, we're not understanding that those channels are coming from New York. But if you look at Channel 5, for example, Fox 5, that is coming from Chicago. So that's affiliated with a network in Chicago, Channel 5 in New York. Okay? Not the whole day, just probably I think 20 some odd hours of the day, because there are other times that they're doing local programming, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So you have your networks distribute programming to various other stations. Those other stations are called affiliates. Okay. Then you have independent stations. An independent station is a smaller operation, but it's by itself. It doesn't distribute programming to anybody. It doesn't really receive programming from anybody. It'll buy or rent programming, okay, and it'll keep the money through the advertising dollars that it makes and pay their bills. That's what the independent does. In New York, that would be WPIX Channel 11. Okay, but be careful, because at 6 o'clock at night, WPIX turns into an affiliate of a network. I think it's called CW or something like that. CBS and Warner Brothers, and they network together and figured out they have so much programming that they could distribute to various independent channels around the country. And so Channel 11, after a certain time, turns into an affiliate station, and then back to 10 o'clock at night, it goes back to a independent station where it shows you the news. And then below that you have syndicators. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. Syndicators, or syndication, is when a program is brought up, or the reruns is brought up by syndicators. And syndicators, what they do is they sell that program in different markets around the country, around the world, in fact. They know the markets better than everyone else. They analyze the markets on a daily basis. They look and see what channels may need certain styles of programming. For example, there may be a channel that needs a sporting show, or a program that needs a cooking show, or a program that needs an action-adventure show, or a program that needs a drama, a dramatic production. They'll know that, and they'll approach these stations and say, well, I have these programs for you. And if they don't approach the stations, well, these stations send representatives out to various what are they called, the shows or conventions, where they meet with all these other producers of programs, and they're trying to show what they've produced, hoping that their programs will get picked up by a particular station or network or independent. You'd be surprised how many programs or shows are produced that we never see, because it never makes it to a New York market. And also realize that a New York market is very different than markets in the rest of the country. There are shows that are really very popular in New York that aren't popular at all in other areas of the country. Take, for example, Seinfeld. Living in New York, I'm quite sure you've watched the Seinfeld program, and you see that it's a very popular show. It's on in rerun syndication, and before it ended, it was on in first time run on, I think it was NBC was carrying it. But then after that, it became a very, very popular show. It demanded a high audience, and it still demands a high audience. But in New York, or in a tri-state area, when you move out to the Midwest, it's not very popular. It's not as popular as it is here. Different culture, different society. So understand that the country is made up of cultures and regions that have different beliefs in terms of what they hold to be true or dear or funny or not. So the Northwest, the Southwest, the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, the Mid-Southwest, the Mid-Northwest. So all different regions. They all have a reflection on this. So you have O&O stations owned and operated by itself, and networks are an organization that produces its own programming, but at the same time it sends programming to its brother or sister stations, and they're very willing, very anxious to get that programming because they can't afford to produce programming like this, of the type that's coming out of the networks. So they're very happy to receive that programming. But of course the networks want some money for that program, or they want some advertising space on the affiliate station. You know, it's a give and take. Again, it gets back to sales. It's a negotiation which changes from season to season, from deal to deal. And then, like I said, you have your independent channels which produce their own programming, buy their own programming, and keep all the money, the revenue from the advertising, and then pay the various needs to keep the station running. And then syndicators are brokers. I call them brokers of video programming or films or anything like that. They buy up everything they could possibly buy up because they can rent or resell the product in other markets. And if you've produced something like this, well, you're very happy to give it to a syndicator because probably you're in debt by now and you want to pay your bills, get out of debt, and move on to the next project. So, you know, independent producers and production houses are usually happy to get rid of the programming, to just let it go into syndication, and they'll get money and they'll move on to new projects. Let's move on to the next one. The production department. The production department at a TV station creates all in-house programming. So for example, in an independent station like Channel 11, WPIX in New York, its production department is probably just a news operation, because news is the only thing that comes out of Channel 11 that's live. Okay, everything else is syndicated programming, right? Everything else is reruns, old run shows, or movies that were repeated or ran before. Then at 6 o'clock at night, when WPIX turns into an affiliate of CW, all of a sudden it's receiving programming from that network until 10 o'clock at night. Then it goes back to the local. We show the local news again. Then it goes back into syndication, and you'll see reruns of old shows like, you know, The Honeymooners or The Odd Couple, or an old talk show of some kind. So the production department creates all in-house programming. And if you're in a network production department, well, it's a very large operation. You have access to multiple sound stages that are producing game shows, soap operas, talk shows, commercials, you name it. But in an independent station, the production department will be basically a news operation because everything else is syndication, okay? It's syndicated programming coming in. Let's move on to public relations. Public relations just deals with the station's image. You tune into a certain station because you like something about it. If you want to watch news, or you want to watch the weather, if you want to watch a certain style of programming, you usually go to a certain channel, okay? And you ask yourself, what channel is that? And then why do you go to that channel? And it's usually, you know, the style in which they produce or they air the programs is what you're attracted to. That's public relations. Also, the station may host events or raise money for charities, and that engages with the public, and they'll give out free t-shirts and buttons and pencils, and you wear that t-shirt. It's sort of like soft advertising. So 2 or 3 years from now, you're wearing a t-shirt that you walked a marathon somewhere in New York to raise money for the lung association. And so, you know, it's a good cause. You did it. But yet you have this t-shirt that you wore, that they gave you that day, and you know, it's old now, but you still wear it because it's nice looking, and people see that they see on the t-shirt it says, you know, Lung Association affiliated with that particular channel and the walkathon at the particular date when you did the walkathon. So there's all sorts of ways of keeping the station's image in the public's eye, keeping it elevated. So think to yourself, why do you tune into news at a particular channel? Why do you look for certain programming on other channels? Do the same thing with websites. I know a lot of you don't watch television, or you look at your phones or watch programming from your phones more so than not. Well, why do you go to certain websites and not other websites? You can get the same programming at different websites, but you always go to the one particular website that you like, or you tune into the one program, the one channel that you like. Why is that? There's something about it that attracts you, and I'm asking you to think about that because that's the station's image developed through the public relations department. Okay. Promotion. The promotion department at a TV station advertises the program or advertises the station in other forms of media. It's like, for example, when you're driving down the road and you see a billboard to watch a television program on a particular channel. Or if you're listening to the radio in the car and you hear a radio commercial advertising a television show later on in the week on a particular channel. That is the promotion department's job. They're promoting the channel, they're promoting the programs on that channel in other forms of media. You open up a newspaper, there's an advertisement there. You look at a TV guide or a TV listing, advertising there. So the promotion is, is everywhere, but it's really the promotion department at a particular station is advertising the station programming in other forms of media. Okay? It's really that simple. Next would be engineering department. The engineering department is the technical upkeep of the station, everything from the cameras right up to the transmitter. This is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. There are technicians on duty to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to work. Everything from the cameras, the video editing equipment, you name it, to the transmitter, all different levels of engineers in different areas in that 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week clock, making sure that the station is running the way it's supposed to run technically. There's no drop off, or the station doesn't go off air, and if it does, they have a contingency plan built in. That's your engineering department. It maintains the technical upkeep of the station. And last but not least is the administrative department. You say, okay, administrative department, what's that about? Well, you write letters, you take notes. The administrative department is in television, is a lot. It's much more, I think, than other fields, or maybe a lot other fields. So, because not only they're doing basic administrative work like handling paychecks and expense accounts and things like that, but they're handling that stuff for different workers, not only camera people or on-air talent or producers and directors and lighting people, and not only for that, but they also have the maintenance crew for the building to make sure the building is clean and to make sure it's exterminated properly, to make sure for pest control, to make sure the electricity is properly run, the air conditioners and the heat. All that stuff goes into administration. Then you have the expense accounts, the special expense accounts, which allow people that host shows to go out and solicit guests to come on their show. I mean, they take them out to lunch, or they send a car for them to come into the studio, or maybe they'll put them up in a hotel and they'll them and their family at sometimes, so they come to New York, and that's, expense accounts. Travel accounts. You have to go somewhere. The host of a particular show has to go somewhere to participate in something somewhere out of state, but they'll use a little bit of that in the program. So therefore, they have to pay for that guest to go there, or the host to go there to do that. And that's all this expense account stuff under the administrative departments. So, and then you have paying union dues and affiliations, with keeping track of all the workers, all their unions, all their healthcare issues in terms of they belong to different healthcare companies, their pension plans, paying into their retirement accounts, and all these insurance policies and things. That's your administrative department at a TV station. So to recap what I talked about, I'll do it real quick again at the very end. TV station operations is about, how departments do, or what departments do what they do at a TV station. And in larger markets, there are more departments and subcategories. In smaller markets, they double up, for example. So again, sales generates the revenue to make the station work. Traffic department is a job in which inserts the commercials and the programming in the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week clock, so the program actually airs when it's supposed to air, and then they bill the client to get the money. Your programming department is responsible for arranging the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week clock. It's why programs air at a certain time. They're responsible for changing the time slots for the programs. That's your programming department. O&O stations is owned and operated by itself. For example, in New York, NBC in New York is an O&O station, right? Because it's a network and it's owned and operated by itself. WPIX Channel 11 is somewhat an owned and operated by itself channel. It's an independent channel, so it's an O&O. It's definitely an O&O. Okay, so you got O&O stations, and you have independents, and networks. Like I said earlier, networks distribute programming to affiliates. They create their own programming, and at the same time, they also distribute programming to their brother and sister stations around the country. And the affiliates, the brother and sister stations around the country, they're very willing to accept this programming from the networks because, you know, it costs a lot of money to fill a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week clock with programming. Okay, so and the deal is the networks kind of want money during the affiliates' primetime programming hours. Prime time, if I didn't tell you about this earlier, prime time is like from 7 to 9 p.m. at night. That's when most of the people are watching television. It's in broadcast. Most of the people are watching television. So advertising is expensive. It's more expensive than 4 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, or 11 o'clock in the morning. It's not. Those aren't prime time hours. 7 to 9 p.m. is a prime time hour. So what happens is the networks are giving the affiliates programming, but they want to take some of that or keep all of the money that they're making while they're trying to sell commercial time during the programming that they're getting from the networks. This kind of defeats the purpose, right? But there are different deals that are made in what percentage points are kept in terms of advertising revenue by the network when it gives programming to the affiliates. Independent channels, right? They are responsible for their own programming. They buy their own programming, or they rent their own programming. They rent their programming from syndicators. Syndicators are brokers of video or film. They buy up all the rights to everything they can get their hands on because they have all of the means of reaching out to different stations around the country to provide them with seasons or series of TV shows. That's your syndicators. Okay, let's do this one more time. Production department creates all in-house programming. So like the example I gave to you before was a production department at an independent station is basically a news operation because that's what they do. That's live. Everything else at an independent station is usually syndicated programming, or if it's affiliated with a network at some point, it gets programming from a network. But nothing else is usually live at an independent station. So production department creates all in-house programming. So a production department at an independent station would be a news operation. A production department at a network, okay, or a bigger station, an affiliate or something, would be larger. It would have several sound stages or rent sound stages at other locations to produce game shows, talk shows, soap operas, and such. Things like that. Public relations is a station's image in the public's eye. Why does the public think about a station the way they do? Okay, that's the public relations angle. How they create this image for the station. Okay. And then next would be promotion. The promotion department at a TV station advertises in other forms of media. You see commercials for radio stations on television. You see commercials for magazines on television. Okay, so that's the promotion department for the magazine company. Well, that's the promotion department for the radio station that's advertising on television. But on television, you also have the in-house promotion department, which advertises that station in other forms of media. You see it on billboards, you see it in newspapers, you hear it on the radio, you see it on different channels. You're watching one channel, they're running a commercial for a show that's on another channel. Okay. Number 7 is engineering, which maintains the technical operations of the station. Nothing too small for engineering, nothing too large. They are the people that make the whole thing work, the connectivity of everything. Last but not least is the administrative department. These are the people who handle expense accounts, paychecks. They handle union dues, insurance policies, travel accounts, all sorts of expense accounts for various people that have shows on television. They also maintain the facilities. This administrative department. So I think that's it. That's the last lecture of this particular class. And what I want you to realize is the departments may have a larger or smaller impact depending on the size of the station and the market. If it's a small market, there'll be more public relations and promotion might be together, and engineering. Well, engineering is usually by itself, but sometimes engineering is very close to the production department, though. Uh, on this page, sometimes in a small operation, like I said, traffic and sales might be together, depending on the location. In a much larger market like New York City, like a Chicago or LA or Florida, places that are a large market, a lot of people, a lot of viewers. It's a much bigger operation. You have traffic and you have subcategories under the traffic department. There are a lot of people that would be doing the same job, but only different aspects of that job. Same thing with sales. Some people handling local sales, some people are handling national sales. In a smaller operation, you probably don't have national sales. You're just dealing with local sales. Okay? And the subcategories on the programming department, your O&O stations, your networks, your affiliates, independent stations, and syndicators. I think that covers it. I hope you had a good time with all the lectures this semester. The next video you'll see is probably a review of me going through all the lectures really fast, but going through all the lectures, all the topics, all 6 of them, from after the midterm until now, till this lecture, and prepare you for what's going to be on the final exam. So I hope you had a good time with it. I know I did. I'll talk to you again soon.